Welcome to the Organizedpreneur Podcast, the show for creators who are tired of the chaos. I'm your host, Aldreama Harper. My mission is simple: to help you stop being an overworked podcast host and start operating like a podcast CEO. So whether you're drowning in admin work or trying to scale your business without burning out, you are in the right place. We talk systems, workflows, and the strategies you need to reclaim your time. It's time to stop grinding and start operating. Let's get to work. So last week, we broke down the visibility blueprint. I gave you the prompts. I gave you the strategy. And while I was recording, I realized something. I realized that visibility isn't the problem for most of you. It may be the problem for some of you, but not most of you. The problem, I believe, is bandwidth. See, you can have the best prompts in the world. You can know exactly how to rank on Apple Podcast. But if you are too exhausted to actually record the episode, none of this even matters. I looked at my own journey and I realized that for a long time I was actually running on a hamster wheel. I've done that before. I had stopped doing it, but then it seemed like I had started doing it again. I was recording and editing and stressed about show notes for a little while and posting and repeating and all of the things. I was working hard, but I wasn't feeling free. And so I realized if I kept going at the same pace, I was again going to quit. See, there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to podcasting. Launching and production and show notes and posting and doing all of the things, and just there's a lot of moving parts. So I had to make a choice. I had to make a decision. I could either stop and pause, or I could change the way I operated. So I chose to change. And that means that this show is about to change too. Not drastically. So I've been talking a little bit about pivoting somewhat, and at the beginning of the year, I talked about the slight pivot that I was taking, and there's still yet another slight pivot. See, a lot of you that are out there are launching podcasts. You already know how to launch podcasts. And it's really not as hard as some of you may think. Yes, there is strategy. Yes, there are some things that even over the years since I launched my first podcast back in 2003, there have been a lot of things that have taken place. The podcast industry has evolved, and some people even think it's oversaturated. I personally don't think so. I think what happens is that a lot of us start and then stop because we don't see the actual results that we want to see. So, like a lot of other people, you stop. And I don't want that for you. So this is really going to be a show that really helps people to not just start, but sustain a podcast. See, people they go through the pod fade. That's a very popular term among podcasters, and Pod fade is simply where you just kind of fade out. You just kind of get burnt out and you get disinterested because you don't see the same kind of results that perhaps people who are talking about the same thing, or perhaps they're in the same genre you're in. And again, I don't want that for you. So we're taking this thing up just another notch. And so in the last few episodes, we actually talked about the levers, the three levers, actually, the three levers of growth: the title that gets clicks, the descriptions that gets ranked, the social content that gets shared. And I gave you a visibility prompt pack. And if you used it, you probably saw a spike in your numbers because that stuff works. It works. It worked for me and it will work for you. But here's the catch. The strategy without the systems is just going to be stress. It's going to be stressful. You can have a great strategy, you can get listeners, but if you don't have a system to manage the workload, that strategy will crush you. Many of you have taken my advice, but were still struggling to keep up. And so you were chasing new listeners and drowning in admin work. And if you have an online business like myself and your business is tied to your podcast and you're leveraging the podcast to feed to your business and get potential clients and listeners to your business, you don't need to do more admin work. You don't need to be drowning in admin work. And so I realized I was doing you a disservice. That's what it boils down to. I was teaching you how to be a good host when I should have been teaching you how to be a smart CEO. So I started studying the podcasters who were winning big, not just getting downloads, because I just feel like getting downloads are vanity metrics. But I actually see people out there who are running profitable businesses. And what I noticed was that there are two groups. Group A looked like me for a few months ago, stressed, rushing deadlines. Yeah, I admit it. Doing a lot of things manually that I shouldn't be doing manually. Treating my podcast like a really expensive hobby. And some of you have been doing that too. Now, I will say this. I've made money on my podcast. I have people and clients have actually worked with me as a result of hearing my podcast and coming to my live trainings and my virtual events and things like that. And so it's a win-win, but I'm still learning. And so in all transparency, there are still a lot of things to learn about this podcasting industry. And so again, Group A looked like me a few months ago. Not long term, but I admit I was really looking at my podcast and thinking, okay, is this really what I wanted to do? Or is this really what I want to do going into another year? The answer is yes, because I love podcasting. But what I realized was that I can't do it the same way. I want to simplify everything. I don't want to do things manually. There's some things that's going to be manual, but a lot of things don't have to be manual. And so that's why I call that treating your podcast like an expensive hobby. So that's Group A. Group B is different. They're calm, consistent, They have businesses growing because of their podcasts, but they were not enslaved by their podcast. That's where I want to be. That's where I want you to be. I want you to be calm. I want you to be consistent. I want you to grow your podcast and your business, and I don't want you to be enslaved by your podcast. The difference is not talent. You're very talented. The difference is the right systems, the right workflows. They have what I call a digital assembly line. So I realize that a podcast CEO doesn't edit audio at 11 p.m. A podcast CEO builds a machine that does it for them. So for the last few weeks, I've been in the podcast lab. I tore down my entire business model and actually down to the studs, looking at every single task, emails, emailing guests, writing show notes, creating clips. And I asked the one question, can this be automated? Because this is what I teach. If it's something that you do repeatedly, it should be automated. And I remember some time ago in my organizing business having the same issue. This was more than 25 years ago as a professional organizer. And as a professional organizer, I was really good at organizing. I am still good at organizing. But just like some people who are accountants and perhaps they don't manage their own business or accounting as well as they do for clients, I found myself slipping into that same place again. And so here I am. I'm talking to you about what I've been going through in the past few weeks. Probably about a month and a half, about 6 weeks. And so I decided that I didn't just want to get organized. I wanted to now build an operating system. So I've been testing tools. I've been building dashboards and some of the tools that I use like Northflow and Castmagic and Riverside. Those are the three primary tools that I use. And for emailing, I use Email Octopus. And so because now I have a system, I finally have the space to be creative again. Because I went from spending hours on an episode to about 4 hours a month. And that's really all I want to do. I really like working with my clients. I don't want to be bogged down with creating show notes or editing show notes. I want my SEO to be automated and my guest bookings to be seamless. And so that's what I've been working on. So what does that mean for you? Well, it means we are all going to level up. Because starting next week, I'm going to be doing a 3-part series right here on the podcast where I'm going to open up my playbook and show you exactly how I pivoted from overwhelmed host to podcast CEO. That's where we're going. I want you to be a podcast CEO. And so in the next episode, we'll be talking about the mindset shift because I had to spend weeks and weeks and weeks shifting my mind to what does a podcast CEO do? Well, not all the things that I was doing. Yeah, there's some automations. I do pretty good at that because I really do love that and workflows and things like that. But it was just really time to level up again. And so we're going to be talking about that mind mindset shift, why most podcasters are terrible employees of their own businesses. And I can tell you that was me. I've shared the story before where I, as a professional organizer, I really had created a job for myself. Now I'm realizing that I was just a terrible employee of my own business. So we're going to be talking about that, the mindset shift. Then we're going to talk about the workflows, the exact steps I use to automate my production. Then we're going to also talk about the tech stack that I use. I call the Holy Trinity of tools that I'm now using to replace a lot of the things that were overwhelming me in my podcasting and in my business as well. They were overwhelming me. So some things that I do for clients, I won't be doing anymore. I'll be delegating those. It's not that I won't offer the services, but I'll definitely be delegating some of those tasks. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this new playbook. So I really hope that you stay tuned. I'm calling this next series the Podcast CEO Series. So stay tuned because I know it's going to be beneficial, because I know as a business owner and as a podcaster how overwhelming this could be. So the prompts that I gave you the last time were just the appetizers. Next is coming the main course. So go into your podcast app and hit the subscribe or just follow. And so, particularly if you felt like your podcast is a chore instead of a channel, then you definitely don't want to miss the next series. So make sure that you turn on those notifications, because next week we're going to stop grinding. We're going to start operating. So I'll be in the lab getting everything ready for you. So I hope you'll join me in this journey. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Remember, listening to strategy is great, but installing it is where the freedom happens. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start building your own digital assembly line, head on over to the website. The link is in the show notes. You'll get the resources we talked about today. And until next time, I want to leave you with the foundation of everything that we do. From 1 Corinthians 14 and 40, let all things be done decently and in order. Go build your system, and I'll see you next time on the Organizedpreneur Podcast.